Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Mindful in Minutes podcast. I'm Kelly, and today we're going to be talking all about the nervous system, how to tell if it's regulated or dysregulated, managing your nervous system, and how meditation works to help support you and your nervous system. So right off the top, I am going to talk about something at the end, but I want to also introduce it now in case we get any skippers or end episode early people. But basically, I asked all of you on Instagram. So if you aren't following me over there, I am a millennial woman, so I'm most comfortable over on Instagram at Yoga For You Online. I put up a poll and I said, what do we want to work on in September? Tell me what you need. And by a long shot, nervous system regulation was like the thing that everyone wanted to work on. A ton of you voted. And so I was really surprised. It even beat out sleep. I would say sleep almost always wins. We just, we need that sleep. But by a landslide, it was nervous system regulation. So I was feeling really inspired by that. Something that I've been feeling pulled to do a little bit is create again. I feel like I've been, for the last year or so, just sort of, maintaining the status quo. Things have been just wild over here. I knew going from one child to two was going to be busy and chaotic, but I don't think I anticipated just how busy and chaotic. And I didn't really have the space to start making new things. And I feel like I'm just starting to really come up and breathe air again. I'm feeling really excited and inspired and like I want to do things. I want to create things. So I was so excited from everyone voting nervous system regulation, which was honestly the one I just kind of threw up in the poll. And I was like, oh, we need another one. I don't know. Let's throw up nervous system regulation. And everyone was so excited about it that made me excited about it. So I am going to make a 5-day nervous system regulation meditation challenge. It's going to be totally free. It'll be like, via email. We can do it all together. It's going to start on September 8th. That's a Monday. So starting that Monday morning, my time. So anyone listening in the UK, Europe, it'll probably come closer to like midday, or maybe I'll set it up so it sends at like 1 a.m. my time. But starting September 8th, we're going to do this 5-day meditation challenge. So this, if you're listening now, since the Freeform episode, maybe you're going out for a walk, maybe not if you're driving, go into the show notes and there'll be a little link there. Click it. It'll take you to a page where you can type in your email. Nothing will be sent to you yet. Because it hasn't started yet, but type in your email, you'll get a little message saying you're in. And I'm really excited. I was kind of dual writing the notes for this episode and also kind of designing this challenge. And I'm just feeling really excited about it. And I'm excited to do something with you guys. So yeah, so that's in the show notes. So click it. I'm going to revisit at the end too, because I know we have some people that skip the first few minutes of the episode. I get it. So thank you for listening to this. I'm going to mention it again at the end. And yeah, that's it. So let's dive into the bulk of this episode. It is very science heavy, which just, maybe that's why I'm feeling so good. I just feel like, science just gets me going. So overview of the day. We're going to start with just an overview of the nervous system, what it is, the different components. If you've been around here for a while, you've heard me talk about this before. We're going to talk about what a dysregulated nervous system is. How do you know you have one or you don't have one, and common causes of this. We're going to talk about dysregulation versus overstimulation. We're going to talk about how meditation works with the nervous system, how it helps with regulation. We'll talk about the styles of meditation that are best for your nervous system, specifically if you're really trying to regulate it, soothe the nervous system, do some work there. And then I have a few bonus practices that are really great for the nervous system as well. And then we'll talk about some stuff like how long does it take to regulate the nervous system? How much time do you need each day? That kind of stuff. And then at the end, for any of my skippers at the beginning of the episode, I'm going to share the details of the meditation challenge. I don't know if I like the word challenge. Maybe I'll come up with something better. But it'll make a lot more sense at the end too, because as I was doing all the research for this episode, it really inspired me to put together like what meditations are going to go in and all that. So that's what's to come. Diving in head first, we are going to talk about the nervous system. I want to talk about the different components, just like a big overview of the nervous system, because a lot of times we'll talk about like the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic nervous system, which we will talk about. But I think when we talk about the nervous system as a whole and like dysregulation, it's important to understand like all the different components of it. And so we start with the central nervous system. So the central nervous system, this is like the body's command center. It's made up of the brain and the spinal cord. And it's responsible for everything that we experience, every sight, sound, thought, word we speak, movement. It all passes through this system. And the way that this works is the brain processes incoming information from our senses, and then it sends out instructions to the rest of the body. So think of it as like the brain is like the CEO or the project manager. It's making these big high-level decisions on how the body should respond to different stimuli. And then it sends that info and, directions to other parts. So it controls our thoughts, our memories, our emotions, our movement. I mean, we know the brain's important. The brain is important, and it's a part of the central nervous system, but it is like the, command center. It is the project manager, the CEO. The brain's doing a lot. The spinal cord, on the other hand, it is the communication highway for messages that are traveling between the brain and the rest of your body. So it can be the messenger, but it also can respond to stimuli directly without waiting for the brain to weigh in. So basically think about it as you touch something hot, your spinal cord will trigger a reflex right away that pulls your hand away like instantly before your brain has even registered that like, ouch, that hurts. I should take my hand away. And together, the brain and the spinal cord are responsible for processing and responding to every sensation, thought, and movement that occurs in our body. So they're working together. Again, the brain is like the CEO, the project manager. The spine is the communication pathway and helps to relay the directions, the information from the body to the brain, and then from the brain back down to the body. And of course, we know that when we talk about the brain and meditation, that meditation has great impacts on the mind. Not only does it increase our ability to focus, but we know that there's certain parts of the brain that become stronger with meditation and some that can atrophy or become less reactive with regular meditation. And something that actually came up in office hours this month for my meditation teacher training, because once a month we get together and people can come and ask questions. They can send, this one was an email ahead of time question that I answered. And I learned something new. I shouldn't sound so surprised, like, oh, I learned something new. I learn new things all the time. But I loved this question because it sent me on a deep dive from one of my students because I had not heard this before. And she said that she recently heard different styles of meditation actually work differently on the brain or can work on different parts of the brain based on like what the type of meditation is. Like, for example, loving kindness meditation, does it work on like the quote, like compassion center of the brain as opposed to like a mantra meditation, which may work on more of the like memory kind of repetition center of the brain. And it turns out that it does, that different styles of meditation actually impact the brain differently. And I think this might be something that I even want to continue to learn about, maybe do a whole episode on. But I was like, that is so interesting because you have the main key players. This is just like the basics of it. You have the main key players, right? The prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the ones we always talk about. But then depending on what style meditation you're practicing, you may have some other kind of like tertiary players that may play a role or may be affected based on the style of meditation that you are using. And so depending on what your goal is with meditation, different styles may help to support that based on the parts of the brain that are lighting up. And I thought that was just so fascinating that you can sort of customize and pinpoint meditation to work on specific parts of the brain. So they were looking a lot at like loving kindness meditation, and also how you can use meditation as an athlete to basically strengthen the parts of the brain that you would need for your sport. So I thought all of that was just so fascinating. And that was something new that I learned about meditation and the brain. And also the spinal cord is just, it's so important. I think we forget about it. I forget that it is a crucial part of the nervous system. Obviously, I know it's important for like movement. And I usually think of the spinal cord as like its significance in terms of movement and like the yoga side of what I do and keeping your spine mobile and healthy. And yeah, it's just a big key player in the nervous system. So the spine, don't forget about her. All right, moving on to the autonomic nervous system. So unlike the central nervous system, which we can kind of control, right? Of course, it has kind of an automatic component to it, but choosing to move your arm, if the sun is too hot on your arm, you're like, oh, that's hot, I'm going to move it, right? That's you choosing to do that, versus the autonomic nervous system is involuntary, as opposed to the central nervous system that has definitely a voluntary component to it. So the autonomic nervous system, it runs in the background all the time. It's managing all these different processes that are critical to survival, things like heart rate, digestion, breathing, the release of hormones. And it also influences the immune system, metabolism, temperature regulation. And I think of it as like the program on your computer or on your phone that's always running in the background, but you aren't actually like in the app doing a thing. It's just like always running in the background. Or you have your computer on, and maybe I'm sitting here on my computer recording this podcast episode, but then there's also, I don't know, I know more about, I don't know what the actual computer, I know nothing about computers, guys. I'm just here teaching meditation, trying to bring us, a little peace of mind, loving to learn about things. I'm going to allow myself this one ADHD tangent, and then we're going back to the nervous system. So I have been working on this thing on the back end where I'm trying to become more of like a professional business person. And what that looks like to me is doing things like kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, like firming up my systems, if you will. So I've been, working for like meditation teacher training and just like people who want to enroll in the future, trying to make that user experience a little bit easier. Like if people take the master classes, instead of having to watch a replay on YouTube, they can watch like a video embedded on like a website. Just like these types of things that I know are essential to having a business, but also like I really want it to be a positive user experience with what I do. And like I'm not kidding. I was coding today, you guys. It turned me into like this little gremlin troll, but I figured out I was trying to get this like one software. I'm sure all of you are listening to this and you're like, what are you talking about? This is just me saying, keeping it real with you. I know nothing about computers. I spent a lot of time today trying to get like two websites to talk to each other, like my website and this other website. And it was really hard. And I was, texting a team member that helps me with some stuff, just being like, this is really challenging. I am really grumpy. I'm having a hard time with this. And I think I sent something along the lines of like, my head is trying to firm up systems and get the two websites to talk to each other, but my heart is just living with the monks, taking a silent retreat, pretending that money is a construct. And I had to like laugh to myself because that is how it feels for me sometimes when I'm like, I just want to be out there like skipping through the forest, feeling the sun on my skin, just loving life and meditating and all of that. And then there's the part of me that is like, but you also need to be like organized and you need to figure out how to get websites to talk to one another. I don't know. I was really proud where I'm going with all of this. And then we're circling back. There's people probably screaming at me right now. Where I'm going with this is I had a really interesting experience while I was working on all these things. And I I want to highlight that one, every single job that you have, no matter what it is, like this truly, like what I do, this is like my dream job. It really is. Even if it's your dream job, there's still going to be elements that you're like, this isn't like the dreamiest of the dream, or like the really like unsexy parts of like having a podcast or, trying to do meditation teacher training online, is then there's going to be like different tech things. There's always going to be some kind of like unsexy or unfun parts of what you do, even if it's your dream job. So I want to highlight that. Also, I've been reading a lot about like mindset, self-talk, all of that. And I read this thing that stuck with me about how what you think, it gets more ingrained in you the more you think about it. They use this example of like if you're walking in a circle around a tree, the more that you walk around it, you're going to get like a little divot, or you'll be able to see like the grass will get like pounded down. Or I think about it as when you go to like Europe and you go to this like old church and you can see that like the steps are worn in the middle where so many people for hundreds of years have stepped on it. And our thoughts are like that. And so when you come across a challenge, and the example they use is when you come across something that is challenging you, if you think like, oh, I can't do it, or this is really hard, or I hate this, it's such a struggle, that's basically what's going to get worn into your brain, as opposed to saying, wow, this is really challenging. What an opportunity I am getting to learn something new, or something like that. And I found myself really applying that today when I was just trying to get these two websites to talk to each other. Again, I'm just a meditation teacher who really loves the brain and helping people feel happy and good about themselves. I'm not like a coder, but when I was trying to place a little bit of code in this one part of my website, because I do it all myself, and I was like, thank you for this opportunity for me to learn something new. Like, wow, I can do hard things. It was really helpful. So I just want to put that out there for anyone who is working on a project and you're like, this is really, really hard. It really does help if you say like, thank you so much for this opportunity. Like, I'm going to learn something new. And yeah, that helped me. So anyways, that is the one ADHD tangent I have allowed myself. I used it up pretty early in the episode. And now we're back to business. All right. The nervous system. This all started because we were talking about how the autonomic nervous system is like the program that runs in the background of your computer. I do not know what that program is. I know my computer has it. What is it called? Like the Finder or something? I don't know. But that is what your autonomic nervous system is that it is just running in the background. It's keeping all of these things going: heart rate, digestion, breathing, release of hormones, temperature regulation, all of that. It's running on the back end. And the autonomic nervous system, it has two different branches. These are the ones that you know. If you've even been around here for even a second, you've heard me talk about these. And that is the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, these two branches work together to keep us balanced. We need them both. They are both important, and they both have their own distinct individual role. The sympathetic nervous system, this is the fight or flight. We know her. Can't say we always love her, but it prepares your body to deal with potential threats by activating a stress response. This is part of our survival mechanism. We need this. I always use the example of the bear. You're out, you're hiking, all of a sudden a bear crosses your path on that hike. Imagine for a second you're there, you're hiking in, I don't know, whatever, the Rockies, wherever bears are. And you're walking and all of a sudden this bear crosses your path. Just think, like, what do you do? Physically, what does that feel like? Your heart rate goes up. You're like, you might tighten up. You might get like butterflies in your stomach, right? We know that feeling of all of a sudden you're like, danger, danger, warning. So you're walking, you see the bear, your heart rate increases, your breathing starts to speed up, your muscles tense, your body's going to start diverting blood flow away from digestion and towards your muscles. And you're getting ready to either confront the bear, I guess, escape, or maybe have a freeze response. You're either going to fight the bear, you're going to run away, you're going to find a freeze response. I am going to resist my urge to talk about what I have learned about what you should do depending on different bears. And if they come across, we're not going there. I'm going to rein it in. I can do hard things. All right. Our body will adapt to this fight or flight response. This is the big piece, because we need the fight or flight response. We need to be able to have that survival mechanism. When we sense danger, we need to be able to respond accordingly to hopefully survive. The problem is when the sympathetic nervous system runs on overdrive. And as I said, our body will adapt to this. And what happens is if we are constantly in fight or flight or in that heightened state a lot, is our body will adapt. We'll say, oh no, I am in a really stressful environment. There's a lot of danger here because our minds cannot tell the difference between an actual threat like the bear and then just like a perceived threat, like an uncomfortable email from your boss or watching something distressing on the news. So your body's going to respond and it's going to adapt. It's going to start giving you these stress responses that are bigger and faster because your body is like, there's a lot of danger around here. I need to be on high alert all the time to survive. So we're going to circle back to this. Then on the flip side, we have the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. So this is the branch of the autonomic nervous system, and it's all about calm, recovery, returning to baseline. So once the perceived threat is over, once the bear hopefully just continued walking, didn't even see us, and we went, whew, that was a close one, the parasympathetic system helps the body to return to a state of homeostasis. This is where we're balanced, relaxed state. It slows the heart rate, it relaxes the muscles, promotes digestion, restores energy reserves, all of these things. The problem is we don't always return to this kind of homeostasis, this balanced state for different reasons. So I like to think about the sympathetic nervous system, specifically sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous system, as like this little pendulum, right? It's going side to side. And sometimes you're swinging way into fight or flight. Sometimes you're swinging like way, really activating that rest and digest. But there's also, all of the other stops along the way between the two ends of the spectrum. Now, we get into trouble, and this is where nervous system dysregulation comes into play when we are in that chronic fight or flight, or we just have a hard time going into that rest and digest. So what is a dysregulated nervous system? Dysregulation, when we look at just like what is it, what is the definition, it's when the autonomic nervous system is unable to effectively shift between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic states. I love a metaphor or, an analogy, all of that. So if you think about maybe you're shifting gears in a car, even on your bike, you should be able to seamlessly, as needed, be able to naturally shift between the different gears that you have in your nervous system. So fight or flight, rest and digest, or, maybe somewhere in between the two. You should be able to seamlessly go between those different gears depending on what you need, what's happening in your environment, what's happening in your life, around your body, all of that. Now, when we get a dysregulation of our nervous system, we're no longer able to effectively shift between sympathetic and parasympathetic states like we should. And now here's the key. A well-regulated nervous system, it knows when to switch between these two states, and it's supposed to move fluidly between fight or flight and rest and digest. And again, move fluidly, so there'll also be kind of, those in-between states. There'll be times where you're not in fight or flight, but you're also not like fully in rest and digest, or maybe just like alert. And a well-regulated nervous system should be able to navigate this and move between these different states accordingly, depending on what's happening in our lives. But when that ability to switch back and forth gets disrupted, that's when we experience what's considered nervous system dysregulation. Taking the quickest of breaks to let you know that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, as we're talking all about the nervous system and we are talking about learning new things, I think it's something that's really interesting to think about because kids are always learning and growing, but as an adult, we sometimes lose that curiosity. And maybe, you're not super into the nervous system and centers of the brain like I am, but maybe there's something that you'd like to learn. Maybe it's like gardening or a new language, or I don't know, you want to learn how to knit or something like that. And I think that therapy is such a cool place to be able to reconnect with your sense of wonder because you can kind of be in that back to school energy at any age. I know I definitely did tell my therapist this week about what I was learning for this podcast. And honestly, it just felt so good. And it was so fun to tell someone about these new things that I was learning. And I feel like it really just like lifted my spirits. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and you get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/minutes today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/minutes. So there's really two different kinds of nervous system dysregulation. We have chronic sympathetic activation, which is where you're basically stuck in fight or flight mode. And there's parasympathetic imbalance, which is where you just have a hard time accessing rest and digest. I want to talk about these two different ones. Also, as we get into this, I want to do my, big disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a neurologist. Just a girl with Google and a love for this stuff. So, of course, always do your own research and yeah. All right, so chronic sympathetic activation. So this is one of the most common forms of dysregulation when it comes to being stuck. It's basically our nervous system gets stuck in that fight or flight mode. And this can happen for a bunch of different reasons. Maybe you're just dealing with a lot of stress at work, or there's a lot going on at home. Maybe you've experienced trauma in the past. Maybe you aren't sleeping. Something is causing a lot of anxiety in your life. Maybe you're just living in a really stressful or like loud environment. There's a lot of things that can contribute to this. And when this happens, your body is just continuously responding as if there is a threat, even if the actual danger has passed. So we might not be facing the bear, but our body doesn't know that. So we could be reacting to like really intense work deadlines, financial stress, like constant exposure to bad news, excessive social media use. This definitely has been linked to negatively impacting our nervous system. This is also something I've experienced, like when I'm feeling more anxious, when I'm feeling more dysregulated, the first thing and one of the quickest things that helps, other than meditation, is looking at, am I spending too much time on social media or my phone in general? And it really helps to dial that back. So the nervous system will interpret these stressors as potential threats, and then that's going to trigger the fight or flight response over and over again. So instead of shifting back into rest and digest mode after that threat has passed, after we move, beyond it, we just stay on high alert. It's like we get stuck and we have like one stressor after another, and we just get stuck in that fight or flight. And when we're stuck in this mode, we're releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And over time, this can lead to a whole range of issues. This can lead to heightened anxiety, high blood pressure, insomnia, digestive issues. It can impact your immune system. And I want to kind of make a note here that when it comes to nervous system stuff, I'm talking about this could be happening in the short term and also in the long term. Something that comes to my mind recently, words are hard, is I had a trickier day the other day with just mostly with pork chop, but also with Poppy. And I was with the kids. It was just a long day, and they were just, they were being a piece of work. And there was a lot of, pork chop was just off. Poppy needed a lot from me. And I just felt myself being like a little bit more reactive than I would have liked. Our day started with a, 2-hour potty battle. It was a whole thing. My whole day just started with like toddler constipation, and it basically just went downhill from there for like the whole day. And these types of things happen. And that's the thing that sticks out in my mind when I think about like short-term dysregulation. You better believe that even by the time I hit lunchtime, and this is with all the tools I have in my toolbox, still by the time we hit lunch, my nervous system was dysregulated. That is like short-term. That absolutely can happen. What also can happen is you can kind of get the long-term dysregulation. So if I have days like that over and over and over and over for weeks, for months, then that can really start to impact in the long term my nervous system. That's where we're going to have to probably do a little more work over time to work on regulating the nervous system. One really tough day like that, I find that, doing my evening routine, self-care, meditation, maybe writing about it, I've been on my poetry kicks, maybe, writing some little poetic lines about toddler constipation, whatever it is, that can help to regulate like at the end of the day. But I have found that if it's like that heightened stress, so for example, the first few months of Poppy's life, that early postpartum period, and I'm just, pulling from the examples that I've experienced recently, that is high stress environment, but like for months. That's, not sleeping for months. That's, stressful things, worrying about your kid's health. It's all sorts of things popping up. And that's going to take more time to reverse. Like, I feel like even when it comes like the sleep deprivation, things like that, we're almost a year into this, which I can't believe that Poppy is going to be 1 coming up. But I feel like I'm really just starting to make some headway on reversing or repairing some of that damage from being in that heightened state for so long, for so many months. It really takes time. And I think about it, and I really tried to do some research into this of like, can anyone agree on like how long it's actually going to take to repair some of this nervous system stuff, to reverse some of the dysregulation that we're experiencing? And no one could agree on anything. But the best that I found was a lot of people said it depends on basically how long have you been dysregulated. So again, is it just a day where you're dysregulated? And so maybe you need a relaxing night, or maybe, you try to take it easy for the few days after that. Or has this been more of like a chronic thing? A lot of people said that 1 to 3-ish months, and don't worry, we're going to talk about like how you do this in just a couple of minutes. But the longer you're kind of dysregulated, the longer it's going to take to really start to feel like yourself again. So I share all that because I don't want anyone to panic and be like, well, I also had like the most stressful day. It was so out of pocket, or a couple stressful days. And now you're thinking, oh my gosh, now this is going to lead to my immune system is going to be trash. I'm going to have chronic anxiety. My blood pressure is going to be ruined. No, that's, a few dysregulated days won't necessarily lead to like these long chronic things, but it can if we stay dysregulated for long enough. So just something to make note of. When we talk about parasympathetic imbalance, this is the one where it's the difficulty accessing the rest and digest. So sometimes people will have a different kind of dysregulation. And the research that I was doing into this, no one outright said which one was more common, but the way they were writing about it when I was looking at the research, it implied that this one is less common. So sometimes people have trouble activating their parasympathetic nervous system. So that rest and digest function that helps the body recover, heal, restore balance. This might mean that when the stressor is gone, the body is still struggling to fully relax. Now, I know this one happens because I actually hear it from a lot of you. I would say before my meditation journey, like before I really made meditation a part of my life and started focusing more on nervous system care, I would find too that a big kind of cornerstone of this is even if you try to sit down to relax, you like just can't. It's like your body struggles to fully relax. You're always a little bit on edge. You feel like I need to do something, or what's the next thing? What's going on? And you just like, you find yourself feeling restless, even antsy in situations where you should or could easily be calm. This could be racing thoughts at night, unable to relax after a long day, feeling like you need to go do something. This can be a sign that parasympathetic system isn't kicking in the way that it should be, and that your body's having a hard time shifting out of the stress response. I hear this from a lot of you too, where a lot of you come to meditation for these types of things. That's a lot of the reason why I started turning to meditation and why I continue to like double down on it. And I always say people don't show up for meditation or start looking into meditation or even things like acupuncture or Reiki or hypnosis or any of those types of things, like people don't usually show up to those things when everything is going well. It's usually when we're having a hard time or struggling with something, we feel like we can't relax. We know something is off and we kind of have this, I don't know, I'll try anything mentality that people come to meditation. So I hear this a lot from all of you, this idea of you just can't fully relax. Or when people hear what I do, they're like, oh, I tried meditation once and I really couldn't. I can't sit still. I can never relax. And then in my head, I'm always like, oh, ding, ding, ding. We might have some nervous system dysregulation going on there. But really, I joke, but really these types of things are important signals that the body is sending us that we should pay attention to. So those are the two different types of nervous system dysregulation we tend to see. So the one where you're either stuck in fight or flight mode, or your body seems to have a hard time getting into that rest and digest. Now, it doesn't seem like you need to necessarily take a different approach depending on which one you have. That a lot of the things that I'm going to share in a little bit that can help your nervous system, really soothe your nervous system, calm it down, can be beneficial for all types of dysregulation, which is great. You don't need to take necessarily a whole different route depending on what category you feel like you fall in. And again, this can be in short term. It also can be in long term. So what are some of the common causes of dysregulation? It's exactly what you think it's going to be. There's several factors that can push kind of this autonomic nervous system out of balance, but the more common ones are going to be chronic stress, right? This is one of the biggest culprits when it comes to needing to regulate your nervous system, is going to be chronic stress. If you're constantly dealing with stress, whether it's work, family, financial, friendships, whatever it is, your body can remain in fight or flight mode almost permanently. Because if you think about it, if you just have these stressors coming, from different aspects of your life, left and right, you're always having to respond to these perceived threats. And then over time, the nervous system, it can become overworked, overloaded, and it gets stuck in this state of what's called hyperarousal, which is, maybe not the type of arousal that you want. I don't know. But we can get stuck in that state, and it's just you're on high alert all the time. Your body, your mind, your nervous system constantly is going, warning, danger, pay attention, something's wrong, red alert. So chronic stress, right? That doesn't help anything. Traumatic experiences, particularly those that happen in childhood, or like specific traumatic events. They can have long-lasting impact on the nervous system. Anyone who has experienced, I hope none of you have ever experienced traumatic events or childhood trauma. I am willing to guess that's, not the case, but I don't wish that on anyone. But the body learns to stay on high alert as a way of protecting itself from future harm. This is often seen in people with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, where the body and the mind remain locked in the survival mode even long after the trauma has passed. We know that traumatic experiences absolutely can have an impact on the nervous system, again, in the short term and in the long term. Lack of sleep or sleep deprivation. Sleep is essential to life. It is like sleep and water you need to survive. And it can play such a huge role in dysregulating the nervous system. When sleep, like when our body doesn't have the chance to rest or recover like it needs to, it is almost impossible for it to recalibrate. It is hard for it to get what it needs, have balanced hormones, be able to, so much happens in sleep, down from old neurons dying away so that your brain can make new neurons. Memory is being reorganized the way that they're supposed to be. The tissues of your body regenerating. Your immune system is reinforced during sleep. Everything happens when you sleep. And so if you have a lack of sleep, it's of course going to impact your nervous system. Lack of sleep is a big stressor. So that is like truly, sometimes people will say, other than meditation, what's the one thing that you think people can do to, usually they say like to live a happier, healthier life or whatever it is. And I always say sleep, start prioritizing your sleep because it really does make a difference in truly everything. And I know that that is hard, but I feel so strongly about that. And on the flip side, I know that the way that we sleep to me, and from the work that I do with all of you, private clients, people I talk to on retreats, and I experience this in myself too, the way that I'm sleeping is an absolute indication of how I'm doing overall. Like when I'm not in a great place, I'm not sleeping well, or I'm not sleeping as well, or I'm, tired all the time, or I'm waking up in the middle of the night worrying. Like I can use my sleep as a litmus test to how am I actually doing. And when I start struggling with my sleep, that's usually an indicator to me to pay attention because something's going awry. So I guess this is everyone's like reminder to just, even if you can go to bed like 10 minutes earlier tonight, listen to that sleep meditation that I just did, which, okay, I'm not going to go too far on this because I already used up my one tangent. But I was really excited about that meditation. And I realized it's been so long since I've done a sleep meditation. It felt like I was putting on like my favorite pair of jeans that I hadn't worn in a long time. And I was like, oh, writing a sleep meditation, it just feels so good. So anyways, go put that one on. It's right before this in the feed, and go to bed a little bit early tonight to take care of yourself. Okay. Poor nutrition. This one stuck out to me a little bit. I don't talk about, I'm certainly not a nutritionist. I don't talk about food, nutrition, that sort of thing. But what I found was interesting with this is there are certain things that can be stressors on our body. We know this. Lots of processed foods, sugar, excessive caffeine. And they can keep the body in a state of stress, which can prevent proper nervous system regulation. And the body requires certain nutrients to function properly, and a lack of those nutrients can prevent the nervous system from calming down. So just something to be mindful of. Again, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to eat, but something that I like to do in my own life is I like to think about how does this food make me feel. So there's two things that I really learned about eating when I was with Bonte and I was living with the monks, studying TWIM. And one of these things was when you were eating, thinking about how does this food make me feel, and thinking about that well beyond eating the meal, really kind of being mindful and just thinking about, how does my body feel after these certain foods. The other thing that we did, which is still to this day, one of my favorite practices, if you've never done this, I highly recommend doing it. It feels so good, and it's really illuminating, I think, is we were instructed to, because I'd taken a vow of silence, I wasn't allowed to speak, and so we're all sitting there quietly eating our meals, is you're supposed to think about the process the food took to get to your plate all the way, and you're supposed to express gratitude and send loving kindness to all of the people and things that were part of that process. So if I was eating a salad, I would look at the lettuce in the salad and I would think, okay, thank you, sun, for shining down on the lettuce farm and growing this head of romaine. And thank you, soil, for sharing your nutrients with the roots that grew this lettuce, and sending loving kindness to the person who picked the lettuce, and then the person who sent the lettuce and put it on the truck that then went to the grocery store, and then the person who stocked those shelves, and then the person who, worked in the kitchens that prepared the food and put the food on my plate and then handed it to me. And thinking about, as you're eating things, all of the people that had a part in bringing that nourishment and fuel to your body and sending them all loving kindness. I still to this day think that's one of the most beautiful practices, and I love doing it. It's something that I miss. Mealtime's a little bit chaotic now. I don't usually get like just quiet meals alone, but that's something that I miss, and it feels so good. And then the other component of that was like, how does this food make you feel? And I have found that to be really powerful, to slow down. The beautiful practice of sending loving kindness to all the people that have prepared the food, but then also how does it make me feel without, any kind of like, eat this, don't eat that, do this, don't do that, cut this out of your diet. I'm never going to tell you to do any of that stuff. But what I will say is just listen to your body. And I have found that tuning into my body, it kind of tells me what I need, and I follow its cues. So poor nutrition, things that put stressors on the body can, and we know that if we go and we have, whatever, a quad shot Americano, yeah, our nervous system is going to be a little bit out of whack. It's going to be like flying to the moon. We know these things, but just something to be mindful of. Another one is prolonged emotional or mental strain. So ongoing emotional stress, whether it's from grief, relationship struggles, chronic worry, these types of things can keep the nervous system dysregulated. And when we carry emotional burdens for too long, our bodies are going to respond as if they're constantly facing a threat. Another thing that I came across often was people talking about the postpartum period, which I touched on, and birth trauma. So in the postpartum period, there's a lot of hormonal changes. There's lack of sleep. There's a lot going on. You may not be getting that proper nutrition. There's a lot of things going like big. And I also found that if you're, menopausal or perimenopausal too, anytime your body's going through like a big hormonal change, like a big shift like that, you can also be more prone to dysregulation in your nervous system. Then also the birth trauma thing was interesting to me because, again, that birth trauma is a traumatic event, and that is something that we know can impact our nervous system. And then sometimes the two can play together of having birth trauma and then a more heightened or, on edge activated postpartum experience as well. So if that relates to you, do your best to take care of yourself. One thing that I did differently with Poppy versus pork chop, and it totally changed my postpartum experience, was I did focus a lot on nervous system work, the kind of stuff we're going to talk about, the nervous system work when I was pregnant, and also like the first 4 months postpartum. And it really helped. My postpartum anxiety is much lower. Also, you guys know You Are Not Your Thoughts. I wrote that inspired by the intense postpartum anxiety I had with pork chop. Doing that type of work, that's in the journal, all of that. But it really focusing on my nervous system and calming my nervous system those first few months postpartum made a huge difference. All right, signs of a dysregulated versus a regulated nervous system, because maybe some of you listening, maybe this is an issue. Maybe you don't have dysregulation in your nervous system. Maybe you're just regulated, you're good. And if that is you, I love that for you. So a dysregulated nervous system. Physical signs, things like chronic tension, high blood pressure. I want to say, just because it's not if you have this, then you must have that. Just because you have high blood pressure, that doesn't mean you have this completely dysregulated nervous system. I feel like you get a little combo of these going, and that's how you know that maybe there's some dysregulation going on. Poor digestion, difficulty sleeping, headaches, fatigue, frequent illness, anxiety, irritability. That's a big one for me. I find that I'm a little bit more on edge, a little bit more reactive. Things that I would usually have patience for, I have less patience for when I'm getting overstimulated, which can lead to dysregulation. Difficulty managing emotions, being on edge. And again, it's a spectrum. And it can be short-term or it can be long-term. So just paying attention to these signals our body is sending us. Now, a regulated nervous system. This is going to look like a balanced heart rate, relaxed muscles, healthy digestion, stable energy levels, deep, restful sleep, emotional resilience, greater focus, mental clarity, adaptability to stress, being calm, having a general sense of well-being, all of those things. And it's important to remember dysregulated nervous system, it's not going to happen overnight. It is a result of prolonged exposure to stressors. And the nervous system is incredibly adaptable. So just because you have a rough couple of days doesn't mean you can't rebound really quickly. With the right tools, you can start to bring the nervous system back into balance and restore its natural ability to shift in between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic states. And one of the best tools that you can use that has been proven to help with nervous system regulation is meditation. So great. We know meditation is awesome, but how does it work and why? So I want to talk about the science and some studies behind this. So meditation impacts the nervous system primarily by working with the parasympathetic nervous system. So meditation helps to shift the body from the sympathetic fight or flight state to a parasympathetic rest and digest state by calming the mind and the body. Think about it. Think about the last meditation that you did, right? Hopefully you felt a little less activated when you're done, even if it was just a little bit. And so over time, is that meditation is helping you in the moment be able to kind of switch gears, moving away from fight or flight and into rest and digest. But it also can help to train your body over time to be able to switch automatically when needed. So again, if we think about the gears in the car, if hopefully we're driving the car, we're able to, move to different gears depending on what we need, but sometimes we can get stuck in that fight or flight, or we have a hard time shifting into rest and digest. The more that we meditate, not only are we then shifting, kind of downshifting from fight or flight into rest and digest in the moment during the meditation practice, but then we're training our body or our car to be able to shift as it needs automatically between the different system. So again, it helps in the short term and also the long term. Now, vagus nerve stimulation. You guys know how I feel about the vagus nerve. I love the vagus nerve. And many forms of meditation increase vagal tone, which is basically just like how strong the vagus nerve is, how well it can react. And the vagus nerve really helps to promote relaxation and helps you return to a homeostasis. Now, you can listen to the whole vagus nerve episode that I did on, obviously, the vagus nerve. But the overview of that, the very high level, is that the vagus nerve is one of the most important nerves in your body, and it plays this crucial role in regulating your autonomic nervous system. It's the longest cranial nerve running from your brainstem all the way down through your neck and your chest, down to your abdomen. It affects your heart, lungs, digestive tract, and so much more. And the vagus nerve is like this bridge between your mind and your body, and meditation is one of the best tools to keeping that bridge strong and functioning smoothly. So by regularly engaging in meditation, you can enhance your vagal tone, making it easier for your body to relax, to recover, and maintain overall health. There's a lot of other amazing things, but the vagus nerve is just fantastic. Neuroplasticity and stress resilience. So meditation has been shown to rewire neural circuits to improve emotional regulation and stress responses. So we've talked about this in the past. Basically, what's happening is when you meditate, the activity goes from like a scattered pattern. So, lots of activity going on in different parts of the brain. And what happens is it starts to be focused primarily in the prefrontal cortex, which plays a crucial role in emotion regulation, and the activation in the amygdala, which is the pain, fear, worry, anxiety center of the brain. It begins to deactivate. It calms down. It turns off the activation of that part of the brain, which the amygdala is responsible for kicking off the fight or flight response. And then over time, your prefrontal cortex will get bigger and stronger, and your amygdala can actually shrink over time, usually with about 10 minutes of meditation every day for 8 weeks. Brain scans show us that you can actually measure changes in those two key areas of the brain. Now, circling back to this interesting thing that I found out, where depending on what kind of meditation you do, it may slightly impact other parts of the brain. You can kind of pinpoint and potentially, if you really wanted to work on the compassion center of the brain, you'd want to do a loving kindness meditation. If you wanted to focus on the focus, the hyper focus part of the brain, you would do something like a present moment meditation or breath meditation, where you just stay with one specific thing the whole time. But yeah, that's basically how neuroplasticity and stress resilience work together during meditation. There's also been some really interesting data on heart rate variability. So heart rate variability is the variation in time intervals between consecutive heartbeats. So what that means is, instead of having your heart beat at this perfectly regular pace, beat, 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 the time between beats actually fluctuates. It's not perfect. It's not like when you see on the movies, right? When someone's in the hospital and they're hooked up to that thing and it's this perfect, all the time, just dee, dee, dee. There's actually a little bit of variability in your heartbeats, and it fluctuates. And this can actually be a good indicator of your autonomic nervous system's flexibility and overall health. So if you have high heart rate variability, meaning there's more flexibility or fluctuations, it can indicate a healthy responsive autonomic nervous system that can efficiently switch between sympathetic and parasympathetic states. So a higher heart rate variability is generally associated with better cardiovascular health, greater resilience to stress, stronger ability to recover from stressful situations. And a low heart rate variability suggests that the autonomic nervous system may be less flexible and more dominated by the sympathetic nervous system. It could indicate like chronic stress, fatigue, things like that. I am not entirely sure how you necessarily measure heart rate variability. I have an Oura ring and it measures it for me. So I actually find that data to be so interesting, and it pulls a lot of it's just fascinating because my Oura ring, this is not an ad for Oura ring. I wish. I actually did reach out to them and I was like, I love my Oura ring and I talk about it on the podcast. Like, do you want to sponsor it? And they ghosted me, but I still love it. And it's really interesting because I do think though that I think like in my app, if anyone wants an Oura ring, I do think I have a thing that will give you like $40 off maybe. I don't know. If you want that, just email me or DM me and I'll go in my app and see if I can like invite you. But basically it will tell me when it thinks I'm getting sick. And so many times it has, because of my heart rate variability, it's like, oh, you've had lower heart rate variability the last few weeks. Could you be getting sick? And then like a day or two later, I will get symptomatic with something. It's wild. But heart rate variability, I think, is so cool. And so if it's something that you can get measured, it gives you some really interesting information just about like your overall health and well-being, your nervous system health. But anyway, so it's been shown that meditation does increase your heart rate variability, which indicates healthier, more adaptable nervous system. Now, cortisol levels. Research has demonstrated that regular meditation practices lower cortisol levels. Cortisol is one of those stress hormones. It's the body's primary stress hormone. There's also been some functional MRI studies that show that meditation increases activation in the prefrontal cortex, which regulates emotion, and reduces activity in the amygdala, which is the brain's fear center. So we talked about that, but there's a lot of research on how meditation can quiet the fight or flight response, which then helps to drive your body more towards rest and digest. So what styles of meditation are best for the nervous system? I wanted to find this out for myself because I was curious. And what I came up with through my research is that meditation in general is good for the nervous system. So it's not like these ones I'm about to call out. It's like the end all be all. And you're like, oh, I'm not practicing those styles. All meditation is good for the nervous system. These seem to be the ones that are really good if your intention is to like work specifically with the nervous system. There's 5 of them. So spoiler alert, when we do our 5 days of nervous system regulation meditation together, we're going to do these 5 different styles within those 5 days. So I'm having a lot of fun kind of creating some practices and playing around with this. Mindfulness meditation is one. So mindfulness meditation, this is where you're really cultivating like present moment awareness, focusing on your surroundings. And this has been proven to reduce anxiety and depression and improve autonomic balance by fostering this greater emotional control and stress management. It helps you to connect with the present moment. And I remember a long time ago, someone told me anxiety is always living in the future. Depression is being held in the past. And that's always stuck with me, especially right now when we're talking about like nervous system, about anxiety always living in the future. So if you're constantly living in the future, being pulled into the past, being able to be present in the moment and anchoring yourself in the now can be incredible, very, very effective for reducing anxiety and depression. And it's great for the nervous system, but it's also really good at helping you just notice what's happening, which is so important when it comes to this nervous system work because, you know, they say if you can't feel it, you can't heal it. But when you sit in the present moment and you're just sitting and being, and you're like, wow, I have a headache, or like, wow, my heart rate is really high, or I am trying to be calm here and I just can't get there. I'm still in such an activated state, or like, all of my muscles are clenched right now. This is really important information that the body is giving you. And often if we don't slow down and just be present, cultivate that present moment awareness, it's really hard to notice the signals the body's sending that may be indicating some dysregulation. The next one, loving kindness meditation. This one is phenomenal at really enhancing positive emotions, improving your connectedness with yourself and others, reducing stress response, and boosting positivity. This is where you really develop compassion and kindness and share it with yourself and others. Loving kindness meditation is such a special place in my heart. I love it. And it just makes you feel so good. It makes me feel so good. So this is one I was really happy to see this one come up time and time again of being great for your nervous system, specifically because it does really help to enhance those positive emotions and at the same time giving you kind of that relaxation that you get with meditation. So that one is great for nervous system work. Now, body scan meditation. This is really great because it helps to bring awareness to different parts of the body where you can release tension. And this has been shown to relieve physical stress, promote body awareness, and enhance relaxation. And again, body awareness is huge because then you're finally going to be able to get like that body data and find out, listen to your body and be like, wow, this is how it's feeling. This is what's going on. It's so good for that. And a body scan is very calming for the physical body. Now, breath work or pranayama for my yogis. This is obviously controlling the breath in certain ways to balance the nervous system. This can help to activate the parasympathetic response. It can help to regulate heart rate, promote a sense of calm. And there's even certain breaths like the relaxation breath, which is usually an inhale for 4 and an exhale for 7. Mostly it's just your exhale needs to be longer than your inhale. This has been shown to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So that breath in particular, inhale for 4, exhale for 7, does shift you into rest and digest. Also specific breaths that work to activate like the vagus nerve, for example. And then yoga nidra. When I saw this one popping up time and time again, I was like, yes, yoga nidra, finally getting her flowers. Yoga nidra is, and there is, you guys, yoga nidra, there's some fun yoga nidra stuff coming up too. At the end of September, in about a month's time, I have it on the calendar. But yoga nidra really focuses on deep relaxation, conscious awareness, kind of finding that sleep-like state. And it has been shown to significantly reduce stress, promote a deep state of relaxation, and it has been shown to be very beneficial for nervous system recovery. There's also a lot of research around yoga nidra and PTSD and how good it is for calming the nervous system, so you can do some of that deeper work. So yoga nidra is phenomenal for nervous system work. And then a few other honorable mentions, if we will be grounding practices. So mindful walking, spending time in nature, forest bathing, being present in your everyday tasks. That's good for the nervous system. Progressive muscle relaxation, so slowly tensing and then relaxing different muscle groups to release tension. That one's been shown to be good for this. And then sound therapy. So whether you are listening to certain sound frequencies to calm the nervous system, that can work. And then sound baths have been shown to be very, very soothing for the nervous system. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is like, okay, great. Now I understand the nervous system. I understand what styles of meditation, what to do, but like, how do I actually integrate this into my life? How do I actually do this to help with my nervous system? So the big thing is going to be creating a daily practice, establishing a consistent nervous system practice. This does not have to be, a big deal. You don't have to do a full 50-minute yoga nidra practice every single day. This could be 10 minutes of meditation at night and walking out in your backyard barefoot for 5 minutes in the morning in the sunlight. It could be something like that. Remember that it took time to get where you are, so it is going to take time to get out of where you are, especially if you've been dysregulated for a long time. If you just had a tough day or a tough couple of days, just give yourself some TLC, see if you can't, bounce back a little bit faster. But if you took a lot of time and you spent a lot of time in that dysregulated state, be patient. It's going to take time to get out of there. Shooting for about 10-ish minutes a day of nervous system work can be really great. It's attainable and it's effective. And then most places that I saw said that it takes 1 to 2-ish months to really start to feel like you're making big changes and regulating your nervous system. But again, it kind of just depends on how long you've been that way. And I like to think about regulation as this twofold. We have like the daily regulation, and then we have like the long-term regulation. So doing things, your meditation, grounding practices, all of that. That's going to be just like your daily habits that work to regulate the nervous system every single day. And then you can have things that can work towards the long-term regulation. So yes, daily meditation over a month, but then incorporating things like some yoga nidra, a little bit of breath work, maybe a sound bath, whatever you can, working on more of that long-term regulation as well. So showing up every day and doing your daily regulation is then going to lead to more long-term regulation over time. And the last little piece that I wanted to share here is that overstimulation is not the same as nervous system dysregulation, but it is kind of the gateway. Overstimulation is the gateway to nervous system dysregulation. So when you are feeling overstimulated, do your best to regroup, slow down, give your senses a break in that moment to try to stop it from turning into like full-blown dysregulation. I've been trying to do more of this, the little things where I get overstimulated. And again, part of this is like a neurodivergence thing. I'm more prone to overstimulation, especially like with touch things and like sounds. So when I'm walking across my kitchen floor, and even though I've tried to clean it 10 times that day, there's still crumbs on the floor from whatever kid, and I step on them and it overstimulates me. I try my best to kind of remedy that situation in the moment as best I can so it doesn't turn into full-blown dysregulation. So I wanted to put that in here because some of us may just be experiencing, some good old run-of-the-mill overstimulation. But that can lead to dysregulation over time. So use that as a little warning sign and then try to stop it before it gets into that full-blown dysregulation. I found that to be helpful as I've been working on that. So there you have it. That is the science behind our nervous system, how it works, what it does, what can lead to dysregulated nervous system. Which according to all of you over on Instagram, we need help with. So a reminder, if we skipped the beginning part of the episode or now that we're wrapping up, you need a reminder, go into the link in the show notes and you can sign up for the 5-day meditation challenge for a nervous system reset. I'm still landing on the final name of it. By the time that little landing page is up, where you can enter your email, I'll have a name for it. But we're going to be doing 5 days of meditation. We're going to do the 5 styles that have been shown to be the best for nervous system regulation. Also, I think we're going to start shorter and then build our way up. So we'll start with something short and sweet and we'll, increase with a little bit of time. And then I think we're going to end with the yoga nidra practice for nervous system regulation on the 5th day. You will want to be a part of this. It is going to be running live. I do hope to then turn it into something where people could maybe like do it at a later date on their own pace. But if you, remember on the 10th that you want to do it, there won't really be a way for me to go back. So join now, sign up, and then you won't have to worry about it. And then on the 8th, you'll just start getting these emails because, you heard all about, how tech savvy I am with getting the websites to talk to each other and, automated emails and all of that. And then the very last thing I wanted to end on is as I was working on these notes, I was filled with such gratitude and I wanted to share this with all of you because I was reflecting on how much I appreciate all of you, truly. And I just wanted to thank you for letting me share what I love with all of you and giving me the chance to dive deep into a fun topic like the nervous system and dysregulation, all of that, and being able to create this 5-day meditation challenge just because I love what I do so much. And it's something that I would hope I would still be doing even if no one was engaging in it, but it's also really fun and really special to have people that get excited about things like 5 days worth of meditations so that we can all just work on regulating our nervous systems. And I just love doing this with you, walking this path with you, and this beautiful community that you've let me be a part of. So I'm really grateful for that, and I appreciate you more than you know. And that's all I have. Okay, bye.